Hi everyone, good afternoon, good evening, good evening. Okay, and welcome to Labor of Love Sunday series. Let me just invite our guest this evening. As you come in, please share with someone. Um, we're going to have a very interesting discussion this evening. For those of you who were at Labor of Love yesterday, thank you guys so much for just being up, for coming on and just being a part of it. So, welcome everyone. Good evening. And thanks again for joining us. Today's Sunday, and happy Father's Day to all the dads. Hi, Karen. Hi, Candice. Waiting for Janesta to join. Let me just send her one more invite. I don't know if it was me. All right. So, welcome again to Labor of Love Sunday series. So, where every Sunday we chat about a specific topic. This is just for the month of June. The first Sunday we would have spoke a little bit about entrepreneurship. Last week we chatted a little bit about mental health, and this week we're going to talk a little bit about diagnosis, grief, and support. I know we're in a time now of dealing with this pandemic and so many things that different people are going through. A lot of people losing elderly parents, young people getting sick, a lot of families going through grief and that whole sort of thing. And I just felt it would be good for us to just touch on that and to just give each other a little bit of support during this time. So this evening with us, we have, okay, let me take off this music. I just want to make sure you're hearing the music good. All right, so hi, Janesta, welcome. All right, so let me give the whole introduction. So we have Miss Candice Pierce-Suklal. She's at the top in her nice pink. And she is a cancer survivor, cancer advocate, the co-founder of Faith Fight Foundation. And she will share a little bit about herself when she comes on again. Janesta Clark, she's at the bottom in pink as well too. And she's a survivor. She calls herself a survivor. She is a survivor, and she'll tell you a little bit more about what that means when she spends time with us too. She's a children's cancer advocate, an angel mom, and she's currently studying right now in the US. And then we have Miss Karen Elias. Karen is an author, life coach, a teacher, a dance minister, and she would then, she would share with us a little bit of tips and really kind of guide us as to kind of how we could support each other during this time. So this space, I'm not a professional. I'm just somebody who just likes to encourage people through the everyday things that we all go through. And the objective of these sessions is that as people come on and they hear certain things that, women face, they would leave feeling encouraged, and they would leave feeling that, like, hey, if these ladies could go through this and they could survive, they could make it, then maybe I could make it too, So you can feel free to ask any questions as we go through, post them in the chat, and then we can try and answer them within the hour. So Candy, if you would go ahead and just share a little bit with us about your journey, and just your story.
Okay, good evening, everybody. You all hearing me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So, good evening, everyone. To all our viewers, thanks for joining us. Special thanks to Akina for asking me again to be a part of this Labor of Love event. I really appreciate you for this, for believing in my story, Akina. And happy belated birthday. Don't forget that happy belated birthday. I hope you had a great day yesterday. Amen.
Amen.
So, as Akina said, my name is Candice Pierce-Suklal, and I am 36 years of age. And a little bit more about myself. I am married to my wonderful husband for 13 years, Godwin. Happy Father's Day, Godwin. And we have two beautiful girls, Christina, age 10, Faith, aged 5. And as Akina said, well, my husband and I are both the founders of our own NGO called Faith Fight Foundation. And last but certainly not least, I am a breast cancer survivor and a breast cancer advocate. And, you know, I'm 36 years now, right? I said that earlier. And I was diagnosed in November of 2014. So I was just 30 years at the time, very young to be diagnosed with breast cancer. And going back a little bit, well, a lot rather, at 17 years old, I felt a lump on my right breast. And I had it removed, and the routine is that it will be tested, and it came back negative for cancer. So moving forward now to 2014, a few months before I was actually diagnosed, I felt a lump on my left breast. And I thought nothing of it because I thought it was just the fatty mass like before. It's only when it started to hurt, started to get some pains in the breast.
Candy, you froze up a little bit.
Married, I had a 3-year-old child at the time, and I was just devastated. I was shocked. I had so many confused feelings and thoughts, and you know, in the midst of all those mixed feelings, one thing that I was, it's frozen. So what should I do?
No, go ahead. We're hearing you.
Are you hearing me, guys?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah. Okay, because I'm seeing some freezing going on my part. So I'm
the video is a little blurry, but the audio is good.
Okay, great. So right, moving forward, in the midst of all the mixed feelings that I had on that day, God placed in my heart the story of Job and how Job had everything, and you know, he lost it all, even his health, his good health. You know, he got sick, and he didn't curse God as advised by his wife. You know, and I want to interject here and say thank God for my husband, who is my #1 supporter. You know, but Job, he didn't take that advice. He continued to be faithful to God, you know, because he knew that God had something more in store for him in the midst of all that was happening. And in the midst of all that was happening to me, that very same day I was diagnosed, somehow God reminded me of Job. And I made a declaration one time. And I said, God, this cancer is not going to separate me from loving you. And in the same breath, I said, devil, if you think that this cancer is going to separate me from my relationship with my God, think again, it is not going to happen. And I declared that over my life. In the midst of all the jumbled up feelings there, you know, I was able to make that declaration. And I am here today alive and well to share with you that God is good, He is faithful, He's a mighty healer, and He keeps us in the midst of all the storms that we are facing. He keeps us, you know. And after being diagnosed, I was told that the hormones that a woman body produces, that is what was feeding the cancer in my body. So therefore it was aggressive. And while waiting for certain results to start treatment, I found out in March of 2015, I was 5 weeks pregnant. So we were happy to be pregnant, but yet now I would have more questions now of being pregnant and being diagnosed with cancer. So it was a real roller coaster of emotions and thoughts, but somehow I never questioned God why. I don't know. I guess that I knew God so much that nothing takes him by surprise. Yes, I had questions, but it had to deal with the cancer. It wasn't asking God why it happened, why you let this happen to me. I couldn't bring myself to asking God that, because the Bible says that he knew who I was before I was formed in my mother's womb. And that gave me consolation that I may not know what's going to happen, but God knew. He knew already what is happening. And I was able to tap into that that place where my faith in God started to grow. And I went in that day knowing that the doctors were going to tell me to terminate the pregnancy. But I went in that room as well, knowing that I was going to tell them, no, I'm not going to do it. And so said, so done. They weren't pleased, but they had a duty to do. They had to take care of me. And I remember getting that boldness from God, how to be God, because I'm a shy person. I told them that God will take care of me and my baby. God will use them to take care of me and my baby. And I'm like, okay, God, I am telling them this. You show up and you show off. And the pregnancy was a beautiful one. Just the cancer was in the way. I made the decision to do chemo while pregnant. And then God told me in a dream, don't do it. So I had to go back and tell the doctors that God said, don't do the chemotherapy. And it was difficult to do. It was. But yet I had to obey God. Because, yes, I believe in the doctors and what they stand for and, what they know. And they are trying their best to save my life. But in this instance, I had to obey God. And again, they weren't pleased. One of the doctors told me that I would die before the end of 2015. And he told me to put things in place for my family to see about the children. And it was very stressful for me at that time. But yet, in the midst of all the stress and the overwhelming of, you're fed up and you don't know what to do, God had me there going forward. He kept me, and there was a point in time later on when I was doing chemotherapy, I was so fed up. And I told God, I said, God, I was feeling bad that I was feeling tired and weary and fed up. I was telling myself, oh my God, I'm not having faith in God. And God reminded me that this is what He is there for. When we are broken and we feel like we can't go on anymore, He is there to pick up the pieces for us. And it's okay to feel depressed. It's okay to feel broken and tired, but we just have to have faith in God and tap into His presence to come out of that brokenness, to come out from where we are. This is why the Word of God says that His strength is perfect in our weakness. And I am a perfect example of tapping into God's strength and His peace of mind that surpasses all understanding, because having a baby, going through cancer, and the cancer, after I made Faith, she was healthy, and well, her name is Faith, and I had to start chemo one time. I didn't get to bond with her. I couldn't breastfeed, nothing, I couldn't hold her when I do chemo. And it was a trying time, but God again kept me, and I was able to tap into His strength and into His peace, and I said, God, sometimes when I can't pray, I would just say, Jesus, and I did chemo. I was well. The cancer came back in 2016. I had to have the breast removed, my left breast removed, did reconstructive surgery, I did chemo again. And all this, I'm smiling now and talking, but it wasn't easy. I kid you not, it was not easy.
Yeah.
And I lost my hair, I put on weight, I had to deal with that, my outward appearance, as a young woman, putting on weight, being bald. I lost my eyebrows, not only the hair on my head, eyebrows, everything. And I am not a makeup person, so I didn't know how to do my eyebrows, and it was frustrating. And again, I'm coming back to my husband. He saw me crying one time sitting on the bed because I was sitting on the bed and there was a big patch of hair next to me. And like that is when reality hit me. This is happening, and I felt so ugly and unattractive. And he came in and he caught me crying. And my husband reassured me that I am beautiful and I am still attractive and he still loves me. From then on, when my husband, Godwin, told me that, I started to feel better about myself because that's the only person that I need to look good for, And if he still finds me beautiful, well, anybody else could talk. I wouldn't, And I went through that phase.
Candy froze up again. Okay, but in the meantime, while we wait on her connection, Candy's story is such a awesome one, And I don't know if you're hearing me. Oh, okay, she goes off. You're back? You hear me? You froze up for a second there. Hello? Candy, I don't know if you're a little in and out with the internet, but I'm gonna come back to you, because, like I said, the topic this evening is diagnosis, grief, and support. And the thing about
Hear me? Okay.
yeah, probably just in and out. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing about just each one of our lives and stories, and even now in the pandemic, as we kind of relate in the topic to what everybody going through now, some people might go through something and it would look one way, like your situation, but another person might go through something else and it might look like something totally different, you know. So I wanted to bring in Janessa to share a little bit about her story now, because I had front row seats to see her story. She has been my friend for almost 20 years now, and close to 20 years, I think it is. And yeah, I really wanted her to share her story as well, or as much as we could share within the time, because I think a lot of women too would be able to connect with what she's saying as well. So Janessa.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Okay. So, Candy, you're very inspirational. I think that was it. So Kina has asked me to do this so many times, and I didn't have an excuse this year. So this is the first time that I'm publicly sharing this story, and I'm going to try to get through it. So I how old am I? I'm 32, and when I was 21, 22, I gave birth to a baby boy who we named Jalen, and he was diagnosed with cancer at the age of, I think it was 3 weeks. I think he was diagnosed when he was 3 weeks. So this all began when I would have noticed it's a glow. It looks pretty much like if you shine a light in a cat's eye or a dog's eye. Most you see it in cats. It reflects a very weird. It comes back. It looks white. And one day while breastfeeding him, I noticed it, and I was like, "What is this? This is interesting." Okay, and then I kept shining lights in his eye, finding reasons to shine lights in his eye, and thinking, well, it's maybe just me overthinking something. And I think my little brother at the time, who was probably 10, I can't even remember how old he was, he walked in, he's like, "What's wrong with his eyes?" And immediately I was like, okay, this is something. I'm not the only person seeing it. This is something. So of course we went to Dr. Google, and I looked up anything possible, and I was convinced it was a cataract. So when I took him to the pediatrician, I was like, "Oh, I think he has a cataract," and he then said, "You might be right, but let's look into it." Initially, his first eye doctor that saw him told me it's a tumor, and it's treatable, but let's see. And second doctor, which would have been, I can't remember his name at the time right now, he diagnosed it was retinoblastoma, and initially it was in his, I want to remember, it was in his left eye, I think. That's the first one. Now, for it to be noticeable, as we were seeing, it was a pretty huge tumor, because it turned out he did have in his other eye, his right eye as well, but those were really tiny, and we couldn't see those. Cut to his diagnosis was painful. It wasn't mine. I consider myself a cancer survivor, although it wasn't my diagnosis, it was mine. Because as a parent, you are experiencing everything a 3-week-old baby is experiencing. Maybe not the physical pain, but to some aspect, I did experience his physical pain. And so I do consider myself a cancer survivor, not to downplay actual survivors like Candy, but the experience was personal, it was mine. And because when your kids are sick with the cold, I think when I'm sick, my mother still calls me every minute, so it's mine. His diagnosis began with having to decide to inoculate, which is to remove his eye. And of course, that decision became one that I didn't even have to make, because within a matter of days, the eye itself started to do what it needed to do. So it had to come out. When he was probably 6 weeks. So as Candy said, Candy, your experience is, I have a faith walk, but mine didn't look as clean and pretty as yours.
Yeah.
Because I did ask God, why me? Because everybody else had kids and nothing happened. And I remember having a conversation with one of my close friends, and she was the first person that I actually said, why me? Like, why not you? Like, why me? And I sat with that for a few days. And I think at some point I had to come out of it, because you have to make decisions, and you have to actually, somebody's life is literally depending on you being sane and remaining sane. And when I came out of it, I was still very much angry with God. But I was able to say, you know what? You gave me the child. I'm giving him back to you, and I'm leaving it for you to take care of him. I am trusting that you are going to take care of him. I don't know what to do, so you're going to have to do it. And when I literally looked myself in the mirror and I had that conversation, and I told God, he is yours to take care of, and I'm trusting you to do that. And the moment I did that, as angry as I was, and as much as I questioned God, I did trust him to take care of him. And he did. My son's diagnosis went from him losing one eye and being fully functional to being blind when he was 3 years. And that in itself looked like, God, what are we doing? Like, you told me it's just the one eye I can live with. And I feel like I gave God an ultimatum, and I told him, okay, so I can live with the one eye, but if you take the next one, we are going to have a problem. Like, how? Like, I'm trusting you. We're going to have a problem if you take the other one. How am I going to deal with a blind child? What are you doing to me? And he took the eye. So I was like, okay, cool. No problem. Because when he took the eye, he told me he will be fine. He's not going to miss it. He is not going to. I remember sitting with my child and praying over him while he was asleep, and I knew he was going to lose the eye. And God said, he will be fine. He will not miss it. He will operate with full functionality, and there were places we would take him and nobody would know he was blind unless I told you he was blind. And he was functional. So again, I was like, okay, I trust you. Not a problem. And probably a year after that, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I was like, what are you doing? I can't deal with this. And the more I would say I can't deal with this, is the more I'd get. And I think at some point I did tell God, if you take my child, I'm not going to serve you. I can't. And he took him. But in taking him, I actually got closer to God. I remember when he got his brain tumor diagnosis was quick. That was quick. That went downhill in a matter of months. He got that in August of 2014, and by December of 2014, he was bedridden. And I remember going to quit my job because I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to be present. And when I handed in my resignation to my then manager, she said, I'm not taking this. And I looked at her like I'm not going to be here. I'm not coming. I'm not working. I'm not coming to work. She said, that's okay. But let's just see what happens. Your job is for you. Let's see what happens. And in talking to her, she said, I know you're angry. And God knows you're angry. And you need to take that to him. And I just looked at her like, why are you speaking to me? Why? And she said, you're angry. And there's not, you can tell God that you are angry. And he's going to take care of that. And I just said, okay, cool, thanks. No problem. And maybe a week after that, my son lost, it went from his ability to move his hands. I think he lost his hearing first. Then he lost his ability to move, to eat. And it just went one by one. And the night before he died, I told God, this is not it. What you're asking me to do right now is too much. I can't do it. And I told him, it's either you make it better or you take him. And I feel like maybe I have a relationship where I give God way too many ultimatums. But in that moment, I was like, if you love me, this makes no sense to me. And he died hours after that, actually. And I have never felt so loved. I have never felt so heard by God. And it's an interesting story to tell anybody that you prayed for somebody to die. But I didn't pray for him to die. I prayed for his pain to be over because he couldn't speak. He couldn't tell me what was happening. And I would be taking care of him and tears would be running down his eye. And it's that helpless. It's helpless. It's a helpless place to be as a mother. And I think finally saying, God, I trust you. And why not me? Why not me? I trust you. Why not me? And in that moment, I think I just felt like I felt seen, I felt heard. I felt like, oh, you do listen to prayers. Oh, okay, interesting. You were listening all of the time. And in the entire process of having to put my son to rest and all of that, I felt grateful. I felt really, really grateful because I could have missed 4 years of this person. Like, it could not have been me, and I would have missed out on just the joy of being his parent and just witnessing what he brought to the world. And I felt so grateful. And you usually don't see things until retrospect, but he came to make it made me a better person. It made me a stronger person. It made me trust myself. I learned that I really couldn't do a lot of the things by myself. You learn how you just see how much your family is there for you. You see how much people love you, and a lot of the things that I would have probably missed out on if it was not me. Like so many experiences I did have in that moment that I would have missed out on if it was not me. And I just learned to, my faith grew in a different way than Candy's. And I mean, I did this today for Kina because I remember when he first got diagnosed, um, somebody brought a video to me, and always telling Kina no. And then I remember this moment that somebody brought a video for me of a boy. His name was something Underwood. I can't remember his name right now. And it was this boy that was blind. He was on Oprah and all of these things, and he was blind and he functioned. His name was Ben Underwood, and he functioned perfectly. I believe he had the same diagnosis as my son when he was a child, and he grew up to be a teenager, and he was fully functional. And of course, that gave you hope. That gave me hope. It gives anybody hope. And I remember reaching out to his mom, and she was so excited to because in that moment you feel like nobody understands what you're going through, and there's nobody you can relate to. And yes, everybody's there for you, there's support, but nobody understands, nobody gets it. And I remember just messaging her on Facebook, and she was so happy to share. And in Kina asking me to do this and me wanting to say no, God said somebody you needed this. She didn't have to share her story. You needed this.
Yes.
And I agreed to do it because I'd like to be that for somebody. And support comes from the places you least expect it. And to this day, this lady is still my Facebook friend, and I have kept in touch with her along the journey, and she's given me advice. And sometimes people just need a lifeline. You just need a lifeline to hold on to and to make you feel like, okay, you're not alone. And this is a really great thing that Akina is doing. I thank you for inviting me. And that's as much of my story as I'd like to share right now.
I just love Janessa so much. And I mean, throughout the years, as all friendships, we would have had our ups and downs as we all go through our things in life. But, a lot of times when you go through stuff in life, you feel like, as she said, why me? And you're like, God, why me? Why does this have to happen to me? But as you go through it, and people wouldn't understand because they'll see you, some Janessa walking on the street, they see her looking like that, Candy looking like that. I mean, come on, you wouldn't tell, and that's why it's so important for us to just be kind to people. Because you don't know what somebody facing with. You don't know what people dealing with when their doors close. Sometimes we cast so much judgment on people, so much, and you never know what somebody really going through. So I really thank Janessa for being brave. I just wanted to share, when she said that nobody knew Jalen was blind, she not just saying that to flatter her son or be. I remember this one time we were going out. I don't think you was there. I think it was us and Jalen and Dean. And Devon, my husband, was checking some money. And Jalen in the back seat, a blind child, said, "Oh, Daddy, money." So I was like, "What?" And we made it into a joke, and we said Jalen could work in the airport, sniffing bags, checking for things, because how did this child who couldn't see know that we were counting money in the front? Either that or he knew the right things. But that's to show you how intelligent he was. So she's not just saying that, everybody will think that their children are the best, but it's so true. And I'm so glad for the time that you would have allowed him to be a part of people's life, because I really believe that for a lot of people they might again have a different story, but you said it yourself, you had 4 years with him, that and now you have your own personal guardian angel. So I really
would do
thank
it
you
all
for
over
sharing
again.
that. Yeah,
I literally would do it all over again.
yeah. You see, like somebody, I think that's Estrian. She said, you remember when he was looking through the window and describing outside, right? How could a child do that and can't see? I mean, to me, that's just God in himself, you know? So, Miss Karen Elias, please share with us. I mean, you have so much knowledge and just so much, your testimony is amazing too. We have half an hour to go, so I hope we can get it all in and then still take some questions and comments. Karen.
Wow.
Karen, not hearing you.
Like,
Okay.
Akina, one thing you should know about me is that I am a. Are you hearing me? You hearing me?
Yes, hearing you now.
Is everybody hearing me? Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, I was telling you that you should know I am a crier. Oh my goodness. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I hope these people aren't seeing the tears running down the side of my nose. Oh my gosh. Because my son is 3. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how would I have done that? So I mean, thank you. Thank you so much, Janessa, for sharing your story, and as a mom, I'm sure all the moms here, our hearts are really going out to you, and we're definitely praying for your strength and continued healing. And thank you so much, Candy, as well, for sharing your story. I would have heard Candy's story a couple of times before, and every time I hear Candy's story, I'm like, wow, you would think I'm hearing it for the first time. But I'm just so amazed. I'm amazed at her strength. I'm amazed that, like, I cannot tell a doctor, well, Lord send you to take care of me and my child, so I go and keep my child, and I can't do that. Bless the Lord. Listen, bless the Lord. So I thank you. I thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your story. And my story is different from you guys. My grief came by choice. My grief came through the path of abortion. I chose to terminate the life of my child and went through the grief process because of that. And I think I went through the grief process twice. As a post-abortive woman, I would have grieved right after the decision. And then, in the process of healing, you also grieve through that. But some of the things that I found so pertinent with both of you is 2 things come out, and I want to share this with everybody as ways to cope with your grief. Also interjecting my own experience into one, maintaining that relationship with God is so important. If you don't have a relationship with God, I urge you to get one and to maintain it through that time, because it's really His voice and His word that sustains you. Even if you're like really strong in the faith, 20-something years, whatever the case is, or you're not that, it doesn't really matter. His voice and His word really sustains you during that time. And it gives you, so His word gives you examples, because there's nothing new under the sun. We normally feel as though we're all alone, and Janessa, you would have said that you felt as if you're so alone, but then you realize that there's someone just like you, and you could now, grasp this and have this as a support system. So in the word, we're always finding examples. All these people in the Bible, they went through so much stuff. They went through. So imagine Job, like Candy would have mentioned, lose your child, lose your field, lose your stock, lose your work, lose your money, lose your health, lie down on a bed, your friends tell you basically you're dirty and you're disgusting, and that's why this happening to you. And you out here just trying to live your life and get your healing, so, and he was human at the end of the day. So His word gives us examples that we can hold on to. So you maintain your relationship with God. And then what's your support? Who is your support system? Both of these women had such powerful support systems. Listen, Candy's husband, I normally say my husband is the best out here, and I think Candy's husband, is a close number 2, because, to see you sitting down on the bed with your hair and be like, honey, you're my number 1. And I agree with you, Candy. Once my husband said looking good, I will flaunt it, okay? You know, and is that support system that you need. Grief is such a horrible experience to go through, but the support, oh my goodness, you need that support to carry you through. Everyone grieves in different ways. So Candy's grief was different and Janessa's grief was different. And it's
Mm-hmm.
important for us to remember that grief looks different to
Every-
everybody.
Yes.
I will grieve differently from Akina, she will grieve differently from Candy, and she will grieve differently from Janessa. It is
Mm-hmm.
really amiss of us to tell someone how they are supposed to grieve. It really does,
Yeah.
because everybody is different in their own light, you know. Um, your grief is going to be different. Candy's grief is going to be one of, yes, I'm holding on to God. And Janessa's grief is going to be like, God, I don't want to hear you right now, you know. And then next week, you'll be like, okay, God, sorry, I'll come back. What do you have to tell me? It looks different for everybody. So you really shouldn't put
Not
grief
just
in a box.
that,
And that's why I
not just that.
always
I think
have a
people,
problem with with what to tell people when they're grieving. You know, it's like, oh gosh, I know how you're feeling. No, you don't. Stop it. You know, you really, you could empathize, but because
Yeah.
everyone is different, you really don't know what they're feeling at this point in time. So it
And
really is a matter of wisdom.
Karen,
Yes, Akina, go ahead.
I wanted to ask as well too. You know, as women, well, I don't know about other people, but for me, sometimes, you know, when you go through a negative situation, and Janessa wanted to say something, so she could come in too. You know, sometimes when you go through a negative situation, you might think, oh gosh, God, it's something I must have done. And in the beginning, you know, your story is about one of abortion, and you know, this is
Right.
a safe space.
Yeah.
Well, I share openly that very early in my teenage years, before I had my other children, I too had an abortion. And it wasn't until I was in counseling and going through therapy and stuff that I realized that I was really blaming like things that I was going through in my life on that. Thinking that, okay, this happening to me now because I do that. Lord, you're punishing me because I do that. You know, but so just tell us a little bit about that, you know, from your experience and your area of expertise. Like how could we as women kind of not blame ourselves if
and I
something
think
happens to us?
I just wanted to add that people expect it to look a certain way. And I remember being asked
Absolutely.
by multiple people, even close friends, you don't cry. And I'm like, why do you want to see me? Firstly, why do you want to see me cry? That is an issue. Like I was trying to say, I
Wow.
was speaking to my mom
Right.
recently, and I asked her, I'm like, what is that about? Like, she said, her and her advice, you know, they're trying to figure out how to help. But okay, if I break down in tears and I start to cry, what are you gonna do? Rub my back and tell me? Like, I've woken out of my sleep crying, and I think people forget that grief doesn't necessarily look like me not being able to me being full in tears. Yes, I'll cry, but it also looks like all the nights that nobody knows I couldn't sleep. I I
Mm-hmm.
literally could not sleep. I didn't work for 3 months because I could not sleep.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
it looked
It's
like
like they
a
want the
lot of
public show. They want that
yeah,
whole
they
public
want a
show, yeah.
show. And I was mostly able to function. For me, I was able to function somewhat. I was able to function.
I see I totally
And
understand that people do that because they feel uncomfortable. Maybe it's because they don't know how to connect. You know, it's like we just want to be there for the person. So how could we be there? I totally understand that because you want to be there for the person that you love, the person who's grieving. You want to support them. So how can we support somebody
just
who's grieving if they're not necessarily an emotional person?
you can I think you can be present. And if you ask someone, hey, do you need anything? And they
That's
say
right.
no,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
and like I remember asking someone, this is another mentor of mine, and I remember calling her and asking her, now what? Like in losing a child, you lose your identity because you've been a mom and you lose that.
Mm.
And the first thing I remember doing is calling her. Nobody could have spoken to me in that moment. And I just was like, please call Siobhan. And I felt again, what now? What do I do now? Like, what now? And she said, you know, you live. Now you survive. Everything you do in this moment is now going to be
Wow.
to take care of
Wow.
yourself. And it's hard because you have to also consider that your entire family is grieving. Everybody else is grieving. And they're all waiting for you to have this mental breakdown that they're expecting. And I think it didn't look for me what everybody expected it to look like. It looked like something completely different.
Yes, so
And now in retrospect, I can say, okay,
right.
that was probably grief, but it doesn't necessarily look like tears. It looks like overeating and me not wanting to do anything, like, you know. And I think people are insensitive to the fact that if they see you out or they see you, I remember being out once and somebody in the middle of a fete telling me condolences. I'm like, no, it's really not the time, because I am in you're in survival mode. You're
Wow.
doing whatever you feel like you need to just be, and you're coming at me months later, just like, really? No, it's probably really not the time. Like, just let me be. And it's not to say that the person did the wrong thing, but I feel like people they're uncomfortable and they don't know what to do. But if you see me out with friends laughing, or I'm out to dinner, and I felt bad about being happy. I felt bad about being happy. And even now, I still feel guilty about having things, and I'm afraid that I'll lose them, or, you know, it carries in very different ways. So maybe you can address that, Karen.
No, yeah, you're very correct. It carries differently. It really, really does. And that's why I said maintaining a relationship with God is so important, because we have this relationship with God where we could ask the difficult questions. When we look
Yeah.
back at Job asked the difficult questions. So that relationship that we have with God allows you now to be like, okay, God, why am I feeling like this? How do I proceed? Who do I go to? Okay, God, I need some comfort at this point in time. Send some comfort my way. Please, Jesus, I'm holding on by a string here. So you're getting to that place, or that secret place with God, where you can ask him the difficult questions, and where you could tell him, listen, this is how I'm feeling. Please send help. And the thing is that he does. He does. So even if you're feeling in this, I'm not sure, he still will send help, and he's able to talk to you through your dreams and your prayer life, whatever the case is, so that he is himself is able to comfort you through your Holy Spirit. And like I said before, support. Go to your friends, those real lifelines, like Akina, who is there to hold your hand through the whole thing. Those real true bloods, ride or live kind of people are those that you connect during this point in time. And when you focus more on these people, you kind of, I wouldn't say you forget the naysayers and the persons who are out of place, quote unquote, but they don't have such power in their voice as much as it would if you did not have positive reinforcement to go to and to connect with. So you have people like will say the things that person said, and you're like, oh, okay, thanks, and you can just turn around and go another way because there are other positive voices in your life that speak life over you, speak well into you, pray over you, and you're able to connect with them, so that you disconnect with the negative ones. And going back to what Akina asked me, where you come from a place of guilt and regret, all of that is part of grief, and I don't think that it is something that is segregated to a person who would have made a choice, because even if it didn't make the choice and it came, you still feel that sense of guilt. Like, what did I do? Could I have done? Because I don't know your situation fully, Janissa, but I'm assuming you would have had questions like, what did I do during pregnancy? Did I cause this? Did I eat something bad? I think about that right now. My son is 3. He turned 4 in 2 weeks, and my son isn't speaking properly as yet. And I ask myself those questions like, did I drop him on his head when he was a baby? Did I eat something too spicy? All of these sorts of things, you start to question. So that guilt and that regret comes no matter what. And that's also something you release in the process of grief, because I believe grief is a process of releasing emotions, releasing your hurt, releasing your pain. And no matter how long it takes, you go through that until you get to the point like these two ladies where they can see the good in what has happened to them.
Yeah. And Karen, I love that you said, for each person it would look different because also, a lot of times when we think about grief, we think it only pertains to like loss, like death, things like that. But people could grieve the loss of a job. They could grieve a marriage. They could have a
Right.
divorce and go through grief.
Yes.
They could be in a
Absolutely.
marriage, face adultery, and grieve what they thought the relationship was
And
before.
go to grief.
You
Yeah.
know, because I was reading about the 7 stages of grief, and it talks about shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger, depression. Then you have an upward turn, reconstruction, and then acceptance and hope. And those are feelings to me that you go
Mm-hmm.
through when you go through other things in life as well, not just losing a child or going through cancer and things like that. So for people that are viewing right now, even if you may not have lost someone close to you, I think we all have things in life that we grieve sometimes. And well, obviously more so because we're in a pandemic now, and everybody to me knows somebody who would have gotten sick or may have passed away. Yeah, acceptance and hope is the longest stage. I know, for real. And like Nigella said, it has a lot of interchangeable stages, and I think it could be just like forgiveness as well. 1 minute you might say, oh,
Yes.
okay, I'm
Yes.
over this, and then something
Yeah.
happens, a trigger, you spiral right back to the beginning. So it's not a race. It's like a slow walk, one day at a time, and just kind of running your own race at your own pace, because what somebody else might be able to make it through, you might be able to make it through, and what you're able to make it through, somebody else might be able to make it through. So we have 8 more minutes. If anybody wants to ask any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I just want to recognize Jalen's granny, who's in the chat. She would have been a pillar in his life as well, so she's there. Candice's husband as well. I don't know if Karen's husband is here. I don't know if you're on Instagram. So I just recognizing, the people in your lives as well who would have played a
No,
role
he's on
in
babysitting duty right now.
Okay, good to make sure the children come and knock the door. So in our last few minutes, ladies, any final words? Candy, we could start with you.
Hi. Well, first I just want to say that in spite of everything that may face you as a child of God, it's okay to feel down and despondent. It's okay to feel those things, to have questions, but just remember that God is there to pick up the pieces for you. You can't do it on your own. You can't. You need God's strength. You need His wisdom. And this is the time where you need to tap into that, tap into His presence to get out of what you're going through. And don't rush it. Don't rush God. Your timing is not like God's timing, And another thing, as women, just as a breast cancer advocate, please do your self-examinations. You could put your hand behind your head, you lie down, and you take your palm and you feel. And even if you don't feel anything, because whereas I could have felt the lump just below the skin in my breast, sometimes it's deeper down. You get your mammograms done, you get your ultrasounds done, and we have this thing where, the health organization says that once you're 40 years, you start having your mammograms done. But I would encourage you as a young woman, do your self-examinations. And if you feel anything, you go get checked out. Don't wait till you're 40 because I was just 50 years. You understand? So that's my little encouragement for us today. And thanks once again, Labor of Love.
Thank you so much, Candy. Janesta?
Maybe just reiterate what Candace said. You are allowed, I think as Christians, we think we're not allowed to feel feelings and be angry with God. And I think having a relationship of your own with God and not letting it look like what people tell you it needs to look like is so important. You are able to, I pray like I speak. I'm having a conversation with God. I speak to Him how I would speak to my friends, maybe with a little more respect.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
But if I am mad, But in all honesty, if I am mad, I'm going to say, hey, this is this. I'm going to vent to the person who already knows how I feel, and I think we think we're not allowed to say, Father, I don't know what to do here, and I am angry at you. But in reality, as my manager told me, he already knows. He's just waiting. He is literally just waiting for you to ask for help or for you to say what you need to say. And I think that people are way too hard on. I don't know if I want to say that people are way too hard on Christians, but I had many incidents in my journey where unlike Candy, where she said she went to the doctor and told the doctor, I'm not doing this because God said. There would be elders in your life that would have told you, why are you doing this? Because why aren't you trusting God? So for healing, but healing looks like many, many different things. And God made medicine. God gave man the wisdom to do what they do.
And especially in the age of this pandemic, I think that's a whole other different discussion, because if we start that now, they would be like.
So I would say have your relationship with God, and even when you're not at your best, or your walk or your faith walk, it doesn't look perfect, he is still there. And I think that's what I want. That's my takeaway, and that's what I want to leave. You are not. You don't need to be perfect to talk to God.
Exactly. Yeah.
Karen, in your final words, I don't know if you could answer this question for us that's posted. We have 3 more minutes.
Okay, so the question is, how do you decide to keep going after a tragedy, and how do you know that you have been healed completely? To me, how I decided to keep going after the tragedy was remembering that purpose can come out of this. I kept that in the back of my mind, that somewhere, somehow, purpose can come out of this, and purpose did come out of my grief and my tragedy. And that is what had kept me going during that time. And I think the other question was healing. Like Janessa said, healing looks different to different people. But one of the things that can pinpoint your healing is if you can refer to it and you feel the pain getting a little less and a little less and a little less and a little less. There would still be pain there, but pain subsides gradually, and when pain subsides gradually, that's when your healing is increasing gradually. So that is how I would answer that question. So however healing, or it looks differently, but you measure due to your pain levels.
I would add it's a choice to move on. It's a choice.
Absolutely, it's a choice to move on. Very good.
Ladies, I wish we had more time. I mean, we could come back in, but it's Father's Day, and I know you all want to go spend time with the men in your lives, and people on here want to go spend time with the men in their lives, and my children waiting on me to eat birthday cake from yesterday. So I love you guys. I appreciate you so much for coming on. Feel free, y'all who are looking on, to touch base with any of the ladies. I know they would not mind. You can connect with them on their own personal pages. Karen Elias, she's a life coach. You can connect with her. You can connect with Janessa, and you can connect with Candy. She's also the CEO of a foundation, and they're doing a back to school drive for the summer. So you guys feel free to touch base with them, and you can carry on the discussion. And I know they're always there to lend support. So thanks again for logging on. Take care. God bless you guys.
Bye.
And have a great evening. Bye-bye. Take care.